Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AM Report for Happs News, the network of now. It is Monday, February 1st, and we are back after a brief hiatus. I was a little bit under the weather last week, but we're back with a whole new week of new live shows. This morning, we are talking about Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and her growing calls for expulsion from the United States House of Representatives. We're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about some of the crazy things she said about QAnon and the Democratic satanic cabal in the past. Those videos that have resurfaced, we're going to discuss those and cover some of today's top headlines. All of this and more on the AM Report. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. If you're watching on the Happs app, website, or platform, click the award button. Let us know you're enjoying it. Or if you're watching on Reddit, YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, leave a comment, and we'll bat around with each other live on air. I want to thank everybody who's joining this morning. Good to see you. Thanks for your comments. Thank you for subscribing, Chris Tomlinson. And yeah, it's been a bit of a hiatus. We were off for most of the week last week. I was a little bit under the weather. But we are back today, so leave me a comment. Let me know, did you miss the show? What have you guys been up to in the interim? What have you guys been thinking about all of the current events and latest news that have been coming out of Washington? Because I feel like it's never a dull news day. So leave me your comments. Let me know what you think, and let's get into some of today's top headlines. So this morning, let's see here. Dr. Fauci just gave a briefing. He's saying that viruses will not mutate if they do not replicate. This was just moments ago. The chief medical advisor to the president told the nation during his briefing that if you get vaccinated quickly, as quickly as possible, this will solve the problem of the mutations that we're seeing that may be resistant to the COVID-19 vaccine. The death toll in the United States has topped 441,000. Although I'll note that we're learning this past weekend that there has been a decrease in the rate of deaths, that we're seeing a significant decline in the death rate in the last couple of weeks, which could be in part due to some people being vaccinated, because we've just had a peak, because maybe people are observing social distancing measures more. Whatever the case may be, we're seeing a decline in some of the death rate, which is some positive news. And really, when we look at the amount of people that need to be vaccinated, we need at least 70% of the population to achieve immunity in order to have herd immunity. And so we see this from NPR. This is reporting from NPR. The vaccination rate really is still very, very small. Only 31 million doses have been administered in the United States. And the states with the highest rate of vaccination, Alaska, West Virginia, Connecticut, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, DC, we're seeing at least some population getting their first dose there, but really small numbers in terms of having a total both set of vaccines in those states. So we're keeping our eyes on that, and really this has been due in large part to the poor rollout of the vaccine distribution by the federal government. We know that the Biden administration came to power, took office, and found that there was no federal strategy by the Trump administration, that Operation Warp Speed had no distribution strategy to speak of in place. So they're having to sort of take the reins from here. They've only been in office for almost 2 weeks now. So let's see what the Biden administration is set to do on that. But we've got, speaking of which, Joe Biden, President Biden is set to meet with GOP senators today to demonstrate bipartisanship in his COVID-19 rescue package. Moderate GOP senators want to meet with the president to come down from his $1.9 trillion COVID-19 stimulus plan, but he is sources are saying that he's ready to move forward without them, and with his broader COVID-19 plan, despite their requests. But we'll see. They're going to meet today. He's going to acknowledge their requests. Their bottom line, we hear, is that they want a $600 billion package versus a $1.9 trillion package with no relief to local governments. And that's a really big part of Biden's plan and something that's very needed. Okay, these local governments are going under, and they're not democratic local governments. They're just governments. And these are governments that provide social services to people, including vaccines and healthcare services to people. And they're going under without the adequate funding. They're not able to staff their programs. They're not able to continue to provide funding for these programs because there's a revenue shortfall because the economy is in tatters. So local governments need help. And the other big point of this GOP counter proposal is that they would want $1,000 stimulus checks instead of $1,400 stimulus checks. So GOP always just, I mean, it's like almost like pathological, their desire to just gyp you just a little bit of the money that you're owed, you know. So either way, we'll see what comes of this. But Biden, we hear, is going to wants to stick to his guns on this and wants to move fast. That is his major priority. He wants to move fast on this. He's not really interested in leaving time to spare. So speaking of the GOP, Donald Trump's impeachment defense team quit over the weekend. The former president has an impeachment trial that's coming up in less than a week now. And on Saturday, all 5 members of his legal defense team for his upcoming impeachment trial up and quit, reportedly because he wants them to continue focusing on the big lie that the election was stolen, that he wants them to focus on his bogus election fraud claims. So on Sunday, Trump announced David Schoen and Bruce Castor, who will now serve as his counsel. They have some cred, but they're conservative blowhards and have some links to Jeffrey Epstein, and we'll see how it goes. But very telling that with less than a week to go, his entire defense team just quit. I mean, they just were like, we can't do this. And it is perilous for lawyers, particularly, to get up in front of a court and argue lies. And we saw that these election fraud claims were not often repeated in court by the attorneys when they were being brought in these 60 lawsuits that Trump lost. They were more hyperbole in the press. And when it came down to it, they would openly admit in court that they didn't have any proof of voter fraud, because the attorneys trying these cases know that they can face serious criminal consequences if they lie in court, or be disbarred, or be charged with civil fees. So it's not exactly a good look if you get up in court and from the U.S. Senate and lie without facts. So we'll see. Trump's impeachment is set for February 9th to begin. And speaking of the GOP, calls are growing for Marjorie Taylor Greene to be expelled from Congress or to face some consequences after her social media posts from the past have sort of resurfaced. She's a congresswoman. She's a freshman congresswoman from Georgia. She's a QAnon conspiracy theorist. She's a freshman member whose social media posts have claimed that Jewish space lasers caused the California wildfires. It doesn't say Jewish here, but that's like sort of the big part. She believes that Jewish space lasers, that the space lasers are Jewish, caused California wildfires, that Democrats are Satan-worshipping pedophiles, that the Parkland and Sandy Hook shootings were hoaxes and faked. And she's suggested that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi should be executed for treason in some of these previous posts. Yeah, that is who is a sitting freshman member of Congress in good standing at this current moment. And particularly troubling about this is this claim that Parkland and Sandy Hook were faked, which is it's conspiracy theory, right? So she actually had a meeting with a mother from the Parkland shootings. And here's some video of that mother who had a meeting with her. And this is what this mother said about her meeting with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Our talk went very well. It was friendly and cordial. And at the end, I asked her what she wanted me to say about our conversation when I go on MSNBC tomorrow. And her answer to me was, say whatever you want. And I asked her again, I said, are you sure? Just let me know what it is that you want me to be able to share about our conversation. And she said again, say whatever you want. So here I am, and that's what I'm going to do. My first question to Congresswoman Greene was, do you really believe that Parkland and Sandy Hook were false flags and staged? That was a really important question to me. I just, to this moment, cannot fathom that somebody could say something like that. Her answer to me was unequivocally, no, I do not. So did I believe Congresswoman Greene when she said Parkland and Sandy Hook were not false flags or staged events? Well, I very much wanted to, and I wanted to be able to believe her. So I asked her if she would come on air with me today and make a public statement. You know, I just said, I said, you know what, if that's really, really what you believe, then come on air and tell the public just that. Well, her statement is clear because here I am with you and she's not here right now. You know, Alex, truth is power. And if Congresswoman Greene believes that Parkland and Sandy Hook were in fact real events, she would be willing to say that publicly. And her failure tells me that for Congresswoman Greene, politics trumps truth, because lies and conspiracy theories are more important to her than honesty. And you know, I'm going to say it again, she has no right to trivialize the murder of 17 innocent lives on February 14. She has no right to negate Scott's heroism, and she has no right to demean Scott's memory with her conspiracy theories. So I would like Congresswoman Greene, especially after our conversation, to publicly disavow her comments and apologize to those from Parkland and Sandy Hook who she has hurt and devastated with her words.
Mother of Parkland, it was Parkland's teacher, who was a young teacher there and a gym coach, who was murdered during the Parkland shootings, saying that she met with Marjorie Taylor Greene, that in private, Marjorie Taylor Greene acknowledges that she doesn't believe that Parkland and Sandy Hook were faked, and yet she refuses to publicly disavow these comments. In fact, she spent the majority of the weekend tweeting that she's never going to back down, she'll never apologize. She announced Saturday that she had spoken with former President Trump and that her calls for her expulsion from Congress are just Democrats trying to silence her, and she'll never apologize for what she did, and she's proud of it. So she's not going to back down from these comments, but privately telling mothers from Parkland's shootings that she doesn't believe that they were hoaxes, that she doesn't actually really believe the things that she says, or maybe she does. It's not clear, but what we know is that this is a growing PR crisis for the Republican Party, because she's now a firebrand of the Republican Party. She's of the Trump wing, and privately Republicans are cringing at her comments and are cringing at the insurrection and are cringing at the conspiracy theories about the big lie that the election was stolen. I'm talking about elected members of Congress, Republicans, that privately will cringe about this. Publicly, out of 211 members, only one Republican in the House has publicly disavowed Marjorie Taylor Greene at this point. Just one. Democrat Jimmy Gomez has introduced a bill calling for her expulsion that has gotten some traction. We have about 58 representatives in Congress saying they will support this motion. And as we see more and more of these videos, those calls are growing, but it's not likely to happen. You need 2/3 majority vote in the House in order to expel a member of Congress. So some are saying that an alternative to this is to censure her and remove her from her committee assignments. I'll note she is on the Education Committee in the House right now. A person who believes that Sandy Hook, where children were slaughtered, was faked, is sitting on the Education Committee. And to give you some more perspective about just how nuts this woman is, here's some of the social media video that was unveiled over the weekend of Marjorie Taylor Greene just kind of going off. Here's Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene.
And all these different agencies in the courts, in all these different offices. They stand in the way. They push papers aside. They stop policies from happening. They don't tell the truth. They won't pass on information. All of those obstructionists and resistance, they are nothing compared to the American people. Do you understand that? See, all of us together, when we rise up, we can end all of this. We can end it. We can do it peacefully. We can. I hope we don't have to do it the other way. I hope not. But we should feel like we will if we have to, because we are the American people. America, listen to me. America is the light of the world. Do you understand that? Our freedom and what we represent, we're the light to the world. If this generation, if all of us allows our freedoms to fall, if we allow ourselves to be pushed into socialist programs like the stupid $15 an hour living wage, if we allow ourselves to go into complete socialism, if we allow ourselves into gun control, do you understand that we are just allowing that light to be dampened and to be covered, and we're allowing that light to go out? Are you going to do that? I'm not. Oh, hell no, I'm not.
Are you going to allow people to be paid a living wage? Are you going to let America's light dim out by letting people survive in this country? Marjorie Taylor Greene, in what is both an insane presentation of her conspiracism and also a severe misunderstanding of socialism, a severe a depiction of her ineptitude and stupidity, and her dire need of opening a book and studying. A member of Congress should have some aptitude, peddling more Republican crap of holding people back from making a living wage. She is taking issue with you making a living wage. Living wage. The term living wage is not socialism. Putting people in, making sure that people can survive off of their wages rather than exploited, is not socialism. Okay? We're still a free capitalist, mixed economy with plenty of, by the way, socialist programs that I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene quite enjoys, like police departments and K-12 education and fire departments and the military. She doesn't complain about socialism then, only about lifting people out of exploitation and making a living wage. And by the way, $15 an hour, which is something progressives have been calling for forever, not to make this a rant about the minimum wage, but let's be real, it doesn't even keep track with inflation, okay? The national minimum wage is still something like $7 an hour. That's the same as it was when I was working at the movie theater when I was 16 years old. So it's not a living wage, and it's not socialism, and that she's drumming up this much anger about the living wage. Hell no. I'm not going to stand for people, that just drives me nuts. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, more of her conspiracist comments, more of her insanity. And, the House Republicans have been very silent about this. We got a comment from Cameron saying she has a history of comments towards Muslims and Black Americans. It will be interesting to see if that hurts her future re-election chances. There is no indication that her future re-election chances are going to be harmed in any way, right? So the calls for censure and her removal from Congress don't appear to have damaged her standing in her conservative North Georgia district. And they may have even strengthened her, actually. She's raised $1.6 million. She tweeted on Friday that she's raised $1.6 million off all the controversy. She met with Trump by phone on Saturday, and she's got about 300,000 followers. She just had a chat with Trump, and he referred to her as a future Republican star. Out of the 211 members of Congress, again, who are Republican, only one has publicly disavowed her. And spokesperson for House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, GOP Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, told CNN and Axios that the congressman plans to have a conversation with her. But that's the extent of which we are hearing any public-facing scrutiny of Marjorie Taylor Greene from the Republican caucus. So we will see. We will see. We got a comment that says albatross. Yeah, if she is the face of the new Republican Party, I think that there's a lot of worry within the Republican Party that it's actually not good for them. That this kind of conspiracism and insanity is still the minority, even if it's gained traction, even if it's a pervasive problem, even if it's caused insurrection at our Capitol, that it's still a minority, and that people like Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue lost their Senate seats in Georgia, seats that they should have won, that are still in Republican majority states. They lost those seats because of being tied to Trump and his conspiracism and his insanity. So there's more losses for the Republican Party if they continue to peddle these fictions and fail to respond. And yet, within the Republican majority, there's such a fear of speaking out against one another publicly or against Trumpism that they will just quit the party rather than speak out against it. Tons of former GOP leaders quitting the party. We heard news this morning of Bush officials, senior Bush officials. And by the way, Bush was not by any means a liberal. I mean, he was very disliked and hated by liberals and Democrats and social Democrats and the whole left, really. They're leaving the Republican Party. Bush officials saying that it's now a cult of Trump. So I don't think there is a civil war on the Republican front. We'll see what happens. But either way, Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to go. This woman should not be a U.S. member of Congress, and we need to reevaluate how it is possible that a woman who espouses these violent views that calls for the House Speaker to be executed could even have a job in the U.S. Congress in the first place, and how we have an institution that allows her to stay there after she calls for violence against its own members, and who spreads lies and conspiracy theories, who wears a Stop the Steal mask on the floor of the United States House, or Trump won mask that she, by the way, refused to wear for a while until House Speaker Pelosi passed new House rules mandating wearing a mask, or that you'll be fined and they'll take the money out of your paycheck. So thank you for all the comments. Lots of comments. Hello from Montreal. Bruce, good to see you. Thank you guys for your comments and for joining this morning. The AM report for Happs News, the network of Now. We are live every weekday morning. And thanks for the Appreciate You Award so much. Bruto, thank you for the Appreciate You Award. And someone's calling me narrow-minded, it's just the mind I got. And if you don't like it, just change the channel. Thank you for joining AM Report for Happs News, the network of Now. We are live every weekday morning with all of your quick political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, please consider subscribing to it. You can visit me at happs.tv/@Alex and subscribe, get notifications every morning, or become a recurring monthly sponsor like Daryl Archibald or Janet Miller or Sarah Kologly or Tim David or Adam Gobb. Thank you guys for your monthly subscriptions and supporting independent journalism. We'll be back tomorrow morning, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.